This is From Ring to Veil, a wedding planning podcast, the PNW's complete wedding resource, with your host, Kim Mills and Shannon Palmer. This is episode number 38, Photography, Timelines, and Trends.
Photography is a huge part of your wedding, budget and otherwise.
We think it's important to try and cover all aspects of it, including where it belongs during your planning and on the day of.
Right. So today we have a guest here to help us explore timelines and upcoming and outgoing trends of wedding photography. Our guest today is Kate Gansneeder, owner and photographer of G Squared Weddings in Snohomish, Washington. Kate is a professed nerd that is not a morning person. Her work has been featured in quite a few places, including Seattle Bride's Instagram Weekly Top 5. She's here to give us information on photography timelines and a few trends. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, everybody.
So we'd like to start out by finding out a little bit about you and what your story is. So can you share that with us?
Yeah, so G Squared Weddings is actually a husband and wife photography team, and we're based out of Snohomish County. This is our 4th season shooting in the Pacific Northwest, and we specialize in couples that wander off the beaten path. So that just means they're a little bit more outdoorsy, probably a little bit offbeat, creative, and they like to do their own things. They really want a personalized day.
That's fun.
Yeah, we love our couples. They become more like friends, which makes it a little more interesting.
What brought you into the photography?
Oh, wow. Actually, I started in the photography industry in 97, but more as a school photographer capacity. And so I never considered it ever to be what I would do. And then I went into marketing, and yet I was still kind of involved in the photography aspect. And then my career took a turn, and I quit working and then decided that, sure, might as well try this, a little bit of income. And we started shooting everything, and I actually said I'd never shoot a wedding. And then a friend forced me into it, and the rest is history. We came back, decided this is all we were going to shoot, and that's all we've done ever since.
Wow.
So you were in it when it was film?
Yes.
Wow. That was a long time ago.
I know, it was a long time ago. I know, I feel like I just aged myself.
I think a lot of photographers have been in it for a long time, and just, until they decide they say that they're in business, then they say, yes, that's when I started. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that with us.
So we're talking timelines today, not just timelines during the day of, but timelines leading up to the wedding. So care to elaborate?
Of course. So we find that most of our brides tend to hire us anywhere from 12 to 18 months before their wedding. We do get a handful that wait until the last minute and book 3 to 3 months in advance or so. But we would definitely recommend booking as soon as possible. Right now, we're booking all the way into fall of 2017. And so some of the prime dates are already gone. And it's really hard to get that bride, 6 months out from her wedding, and she's like, oh, are you available? And we have to say no. And that's really sad. So if you have somebody that you have your heart set on, contact them. Don't wait. And it doesn't matter if you feel like you can't make the payments right now. A lot of us have different options that we can help you so that you can book us right when you need to.
Right. Let's go into engagements and bridal photos. What do you suggest in timing before the wedding when they should do that?
Perfect. Okay, so as far as that goes, engagement photos are one of the first things that we talk about. And some couples come to us with a very distinct idea of what they want for their photos, a specific season or a specific look. Other people are more flexible. And so what we usually recommend doing is first thinking about how you're going to use those images. Are you going to use them on an invitation, or are you just going to display them at the wedding? That can kind of help give you an idea for a timeline. For us, it takes about 2 weeks to turn around an engagement session and get those images to our clients. So if you need them in for invitations, you need to book them right after you book us.
Right.
So if you're just going to display them at the wedding, you can wait until about a month before your wedding, and then make sure that you have a date on the calendar, though, a few months before that. Sometimes, and this is one of the things that we like to do for our clients, if they have a lot of really cool ideas, we'll actually split their engagement sessions so they can do one right away. So they have photos that they can share, and then they can do one closer. So they have a couple of different seasons or a couple of different looks.
Yeah.
And it just kind of makes it more fun because we get to know them better as well.
True.
So, Yeah, we really like engagement sessions. And I know a lot of couples are like, oh, I don't need those. But it's not so much that you need the photos. It's more that you get to learn who your photographer is.
True.
And because we really believe in personality. That's probably next to how the images make you feel is the personality match between you and your photography team. Because next to your bridal party, they're there with you the longest on their day of. And if you don't feel comfortable, it's going to show in your photos.
Right.
So all those emotions that you saw in the images that you fell in love with, it's not going to happen unless you love the person that's shooting with you. So the engagement session kind of helps build that relationship. So we find that they're really important to do closer to the booking process as possible. So, and then as far as bridals go, about half of our brides right now are opting for bridals.
Okay.
We recommend doing that on the day of their hair trial, hair and makeup trial, and obviously after their dress has done their final fitting.
Right.
For the brides that really don't have that hair trial option, we're actually suggesting what we call day after sessions. And it's where they can schedule a time 2 weeks to a month after their wedding that they meet up with us in their wedding dress with their groom. Oh. And he can be dressed nice or dressed in his actual wedding day clothes. Sometimes we do these the actual day after the wedding. But it lets us get a little bit more relaxed images for your day. And we can go to different locations that mean something to you besides just your venue. So a lot more variety. And we do actually have a package that includes that. So it's not always an additional fee.
Are you seeing more photographers do that type of thing and after the wedding?
I would say about half of them at this point that I've seen. Okay. It's definitely starting to become something that's being offered more frequently. It's a new trend, I would say, that we're keeping an eye on at this point. Okay. I know in some regions of the country they're actually doing that bride and groom session before the wedding. So we like to reserve the first look, though, for the day of, just because there's more emotions. But
that's true.
Yeah.
I don't want him to see my wedding dress a week or something before my wedding. I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
There's just something magical about that day when you're there and all the emotions
and the energy
and your family. And it just charges that first look so much more.
And, usually the groom's face is the,
Yes. It's absolutely priceless because this is what a lot of brides don't get is like, he's nervous.
That's
He
true.
is really nervous.
That's true.
And I can tell within about 2 seconds of him saying hi to me if he's nervous. And that tells me about how good this first look is going to go. Because the most nervous grooms tend to be the ones that are just like absolutely spectacular for a first look.
That's cool. I personally probably couldn't do it because I would be bawling.
Oh, I cry. Every wedding, I cry. There's a good thing that there's a camera in front of my face because I'm usually sobbing. It's that and like the daddy-daughter dances. Oh my gosh, I lose it. Every single wedding. So, no shame here.
Do you want to get into the timelines of the day of?
Yeah. So, obviously, because we're working around so many different factors as far as like ceremony start time and things like that, we have learned to work with pretty much every light. We usually do recommend, especially in the summertime, that the couple set aside time for us to take photos of them near sunset during what we call golden hour. And that's anywhere from 2 hours before the sun goes down till half hour before the sun goes down. And so we kind of aim for that time frame. Obviously, perfect world. We'd love if your ceremony, since it's outdoors most of the time, would be right about that 2 hours before sunset. But we know that's not realistic. So most of the time we are shooting in the brighter sunlight, but we are going to probably take you to shade. And a lot of couples don't quite understand or know that shade is hugely important to us. While sun is gorgeous, it makes for a lot of shadows on the face, and it makes for kind of hard positioning and really harsh light. And so shade is a lot more appealing. So we look for a lot of the treed spots or things like that that can give us a little bit more of the even tones for your skin. So,
right.
Yeah. So on the day of, we'll work with what you got. But, that's part of why for so many of our couples, we actually help them write their timelines. So that we can help them see, okay, not only do we need to think about the light and the sun, but we need to think about exactly how much time we need to be able to get the shots that you want. And with so many of our couples coming to us with really specific shot requests or Pinterest boards, we don't necessarily always have time for that if we don't have a say in the timeline.
Right.
So that's something to consider as well, is make sure your photographer has seen your timeline, can actually make your vision happen for your day.
Right.
Because that's what's most important to us, is making sure that you get exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. So would you recommend them to ask their photographer to coordinate with their planner if they have one, or their day of coordinator, and so they can be cohesive together?
Most definitely. So we're usually, if our couples have a planner, we're very involved in the timeline creation. And if they don't, we're actually the ones that usually create the timeline for them. So
that's great. And so now during the reception, is that part of your timeline creation too?
It is, yeah. We actually kind of help them understand how the flow goes, especially if you don't have a planner. That's really important, is to make sure that you have someone with experience at an actual wedding to kind of say, okay, this is normally how it goes. Obviously, we're a little more flexible, so we'll create a timeline that kind of has specific times, but after the ceremony hits, everything from there on out is how it flows.
Right.
We don't care if it says that the toast is supposed to start at 5:25, it doesn't start till 6:15. We don't care. We're just going to come and follow the flow of your day.
Right.
So the only thing that we're really kind of keeping an eye on is the light outside, to make sure that we can get you out there quickly, get your photos done in that gorgeous light, and get you back into your party.
Right. So don't get drunk right off. Don't drink all the champagne at the beginning of the wedding.
Exactly. kind of stagger that out a little bit. So we do, we're a little bit less traditional as far as kind of what we do for posing. Very few of our shots are actually of the couple looking at the camera. We'll do some portraits on the day of that are definitely that more traditional portrait, but most of the time they're looking at each other, so we can't necessarily tell that they're drinking.
Yeah, that's good. As long as they can stand up. Right?
Yes, And of course, we don't encourage drinking before the ceremony too much either. No, that falling down the aisle thing, and you get it captured on film. That's forever.
Yeah, and that goes on
everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything else about timelines that you can think of that our listeners might want to know?
Well, not day of, but I would say timelines that a lot of the questions that we tend to get is, how long will I have to wait for my photos? Okay. And so after an engagement session, like I mentioned, we try to get those turned around in about 2 weeks. Sometimes that can get pushed out a little bit farther, especially if we're in the swing of heavy wedding season, which is like anywhere from June to October. And then weddings, we actually put in our contract that it's 8 to 10 weeks for delivery. That's about average for our area from what I'm seeing. And there's a lot of different factors that can go into it. So the photographer you hire might be longer, might be shorter. It depends on how they edit, how many photos they're shooting, the style of photography that they're shooting in. Really, there's so much that goes into it. So it can be longer, can be shorter. Just really depends.
Depends on how busy they are.
Yes, that too. Yeah. If you've got a lot of weddings going, it's really hard to find the downtime in between to have a life and still edit. So,
take care of your children.
Exactly. Yeah, things like that. Maybe go grocery shopping and eat food sometimes. I don't know.
Sleep.
So, what is that?
This week, I don't know what that is.
I don't either. So.
Sometimes I think that people who haven't done any type of photography don't really understand what editing can be.
Yes.
Especially if you have a certain look that you present to your couples. So it does take a while to edit pictures.
And especially because every single lighting scenario we go into has a totally different feel. And so trying to get your wedding to feel cohesive all the way across the board. We do more of a light film edit. And so trying to get that to match when you're indoors and then suddenly you're outdoors and then suddenly you're high noon and then your evening glorious gorgeous sunlight shots, and they've all got to somewhat look the same. So that can take some time, and when we're shooting an average of 2,500 photos for a wedding and delivering about 900 of those, it takes time to also choose which ones end up in the final, because sometimes you're like, oh, this is an awesome shot, and then you really get zoomed in and you're like, and my focus spot is way back there on grandpa. So it's not that they're imperfections, it's more like, okay, something happened, something moved, something got adjusted, and now we have to choose and go through every single photo to make sure it's perfect.
Right. So you're mentioning you do over 2,500 photos and you deliver about 900. So what options do the couples have regarding, all of those images? How do you present to them, their finished product?
Well, and this, obviously, it'll depend on the photographer, but as far as we go, we have different packages available. And so we only have one package in which you don't get all of your photos. So in all of your photos, we mean that 900 that are the final, these are the best photos that we would show you. The ones where you're not making a weird expression. Although sometimes I do throw those in because bloopers are fun. Or where you don't have 17 of the same shot.
Right.
So, especially because family photos, we take 6 so that not everyone's blinking in every single photo. So we deliver pretty much all the photos to almost all of our couples. I've only had a couple of couples that opted for the smaller package, but pretty much everybody gets everything. And we deliver via digital download and then also a digital gallery, which is awesome because they can mark photos as private and then still send out the gallery to all their friends and family. So everybody can see it on their phones. They can see it online. A lot of different options as far as that goes. And then the digital download accompanies a USB that follows a few weeks later.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, they have a lot of different archive options, and we do print rights. So they can print at Costco if they'd like. We do offer professional prints that are lifetime guaranteed, and they're mounted. So they're really high quality, gorgeous images if they choose to go that route. And a lot of the parents actually order prints from us.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. The big ones.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
We've talked about timelines. We've talked about digital options that you guys provide and what our listeners can find from most photographers, probably.
Yes.
Let's get into trends. You did mention that only half of your brides do bridals.
Yes.
So would you say that's kind of going out?
No, actually, I would say that it's kind of coming in.
Okay.
More than anything. So when we first started shooting, and even back when I was shooting film, that was not a huge thing. Yeah. The formal bridal portraits were mostly done on the day of the wedding. Or they would come into the studio a couple of days after the wedding and get maybe a handful of photos taken. And so what we're seeing is more that it becomes a bridal adventure. There's actually 3 different kind of sessions that people are doing right now as far as that goes. And so there's the formal bridal, which is where we take them out and we photograph just them. And we usually partner with a florist and purchase a bouquet, or they can bring one with them, and just spend a couple of hours just taking amazing photos of them. And it can be kind of fun because they usually surprise their groom with one on the day of as part of their groom's gift.
Yeah.
So we always try to turn those around pretty quick because most of our brides are not getting their dresses back, more than 2 to 3 weeks before their wedding. The other one that we're finding that they're doing is a trash the dress. And so those are definitely increasing, especially as people are learning that you can pretty much get anything out of dresses with dry cleaning. Because I know that's the big fear. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get my dress dirty. Well, first of all, on the day of your wedding, your dress is going to get dirty.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're getting married indoors, your dress is going to get dirty.
Right.
And so you're probably going to have to pay for dry cleaning. And so, we're finding more people being more willing to intentionally get those dresses dirty after the wedding. Because we even had a bride that her sister on the reception spilled red wine down the front of her lace dress.
Oh my goodness.
The dress is spotless now.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. We went and trashed it big time on a farm, and she climbed up on a huge tractor, but the dress is spotless now. You would never know.
Wow.
So, and then obviously the day after sessions that I mentioned is another way that we're meeting up with our couples and doing additional photos for them. So, and then our top package actually includes that. Most of the time it is add-ons for people. So,
Okay.
But it's definitely worth it.
You did say that in the day after photos.
Yes.
Is that what you call it? The groom sometimes comes.
Yes.
So it's not just a bridal portrait.
Yes.
It can be both of them.
Yeah. And it's really nice because it kind of combines a little bit of both, because we find a lot of the times on the day of the wedding that the groom's photos kind of get pushed to the back burner. And so this lets us also have time where he feels more comfortable. There's not a lot of pressure the day of. He doesn't feel like he has a lot of responsibilities. That one, he can be more intimate with his wife. And 2, we can now get relaxed photos of him.
Yeah, relaxed.
Which is awesome. Yeah. That's the key. That's what we love about the day after sessions is it's relaxed. A lot better images from those.
In trends.
Yes.
What do you see that's going out?
All right. So I actually talked to some of my photographer friends that are in the wedding industry, not just here, but nationwide. We were discussing things that we're seeing going out. So some of the stuff that we're seeing is that a lot of people are no longer delivering USBs and CDs of images. We actually considered kind of getting rid of the USB option and just doing digital download, but we don't feel like we're quite there yet. We still have a lot of couples that want that USB option. So another thing that's out is some of the more traditional posing. Not just for the couple, but for the bridal party. A lot of people are doing more of the television promo style posing where it's, people on chairs and couches and staggered all over and some standing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a lot more fun. That's a lot of the posing that we tend to do, and I love it. So I'm really thrilled that that's heading that direction.
Not all of them in a line.
Yes, exactly.
The bridesmaids over here.
That, but,
if that's what they want, that's what they give. But,
well, and we do that because we know that some of our couples still have very traditional families. True. And so they want those shots to create albums later or prints in their own home. Other things that are kind of going out is like that hand over the bouquets and hands over the wedding certificate. So that's kind of a trend that's heading south. Selective color is definitely something that is out. Heavy editing. A lot of our couples are more naturalist now, and they're like, hey, we don't want stuff overly reshopped, and so we just don't. And let's see. Oh, superimposed things in photos. That's another thing that we're seeing go out, which I have to say I'm really glad about. Because while it's kind of cutesy that, hey, there's, Star Wars things happening in the background or Godzilla's chasing you, and it's definitely not a classic thing. We're finding that most of our brides now are looking for things that will last a lifetime, that they'll be able to proudly show their kids and grandkids,
right?
In 50 years. So that's definitely more the trendy stuff is going away.
Okay.
Some of the more vulgar stuff is going away, thank goodness. So, because we noticed that as Pinterest started to really get big, that people were starting to request shots that were questionable. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's definitely starting to fade into the background, and it's more, the focus is becoming more on the feeling and the experience of the day.
Right.
Which it should be.
Which it is. Yeah. I agree. And it's more on the candid moments. People are looking for things that are less contrived, which is really nice. And, of course, a lot of the stuff that looks less contrived does start as a pose. And so that can be confusing when you're shooting with them because they don't understand why you're still posing them.
Right.
And it's where you pose and you back off a little and you let them naturally flow. And so that's, we're seeing that trend happening a lot more, and people are loving those images. But yeah, mostly that's what I would see is going out at the time. There's a lot more coming in and a lot more upcoming trends that are definitely things to watch.
Sure. What are the upcoming trends?
The upcoming trends that we're seeing is drone photography.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool because it started off as really simplistic, and people just had like those helicopter things that would fly around with their GoPro attached to it. But now there's actually specific drones that you can purchase, and it has a screen so you can see exactly what the drone is photographing, and you can take video or stills with it, and it's amazing. Like, they look like Kincaid paintings. Like, they're incredible.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the things that we're finding is coming up. More of people hiring us for entire wedding weekends, or what they're calling wedding adventures. Especially if people are coming in from out of town, they want the entire thing documented. A lot more people are hiring us to document their rehearsal dinners. So that's something that we're finding is an upcoming trend. Highlight reels. We're getting a lot of requests for those. We don't necessarily do video, but we're getting a lot of people going, hey, do you offer a highlight reel? And we have a variation of it, but it's not quite as awesome as a videographer would do. And then another one that we are keeping our eye on is the Fuji Instant Prints. We actually just added a Fuji Instant camera to our mix. And so we're kind of taking a couple of snaps throughout the day and presenting those to the couple at the end of the day. And then the Google Jump. Okay. And so Google Jump is really new technology. And there's ways that are being presented that it can be used for a wedding that are pretty amazing, because it basically lets you record your entire day. And then you can use things like the VR glasses to walk around your wedding day.
Oh.
Okay.
So that's something that we're seeing, and that will probably not be hugely popular for another 5 to 10 years. Kind of like the 3D printing of wedding toppers, was a couple years ago. So, but that's something that's kind of on the new up and coming.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I know. I was like, I want that. Rewind like 5 years. So, yeah.
When it's less expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. But so that's something that we're kind of watching and seeing how that will come to fruition.
Yeah.
So, obviously with the 3D printing stuff that's happening, that was bound to happen at some point. So, and then like actual current trends that are happening right now would be dad first looks. We're seeing a lot more of the father's first looks happening, or father figures first looks. We just did a grandpa first look this weekend.
Aww.
And that was amazing.
Tears, probably.
Oh, yes. I will tell you, daddies cry, Grandpas cry.
My dad married us, so it was really hard.
That would be amazing. That's awesome. So, and then other things that we're seeing is more of like the personalized moments between our couples. So where it's always been kind of a thing to do a couple's gift, now they're being a little more intimate with it. It's a private note or something really special. Like last weekend's bride actually gifted her husband a Gibson guitar, and he was in a band. And they played that night at the reception. He got to play with his new guitar. So it was really kind of fun. So, but there's these unstaged things happening, or like a presentation of leis to the grandparents. So there's a lot more personalized things that are happening at weddings all across the board. And we're finding that a lot of our couples are looking for different ways to be able to bring that in, even with their photography, as far as like making sure we're aware, hey, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, which is hugely important, because
you want to get it.
We need to know that. It's not so important to give us a shot list necessarily, because most of the shot lists, if your photographer has any experience at all, they've already got those.
Yeah.
We need to know the special things that are going to happen, those unplanned, like, okay, yes, there's going to be a lei exchange, or we have very specific vows that we're going to do, and we want to make sure that you catch the emotion on our faces, that we really want this up close and personal. And yeah, so that's something else that we're seeing. Photo booths is something, obviously they're huge.
They are.
Both a mix of like the automated photo booths and the do-it-yourselves.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of both of those, which is kind of fun. A new one that we just saw recently was like the video photo booth, which was kind of cute, because they used it as their guest book.
Yeah.
And so guests got to pose with all their funny stuff, and then they got to record a message to the couple. Cool. So that's something new coming out.
Instead of somebody with this big old video recorder.
Yeah.
Say something to the camera.
Exactly. Yes. I loved that. I thought that was really unique.
Yeah, that is.
And then we're seeing a lot more intimate weddings. And then followed by receptions that are bigger.
Right.
So a lot of our couples are focusing more on actually creating an experience. We tend to hike a lot with our couples for their wedding day. So that, or we're in really outdoorsy spots. And so they really just invite a few people to the ceremony, and then they have a big party later.
Right.
And the focus really is on the party. It's on that experience. a lot of DIY as far as like, okay, we're going to make sure that you have tons of details to photograph. There's tons of details now, where it used to be like, oh, we're going to be super, super, super simple. And now we're seeing that they've invested in having things that show where they created their life together. And so photographically, we love that. That's amazing. You know, when they invest in all that stuff that makes their day just completely about them, that's huge. So we're noticing a lot more detail-oriented stuff coming to play. So digital and instant sharing is another one. We're seeing a lot of hashtags.
Yes.
A lot of couples on Instagram. We're seeing periscoping happening at weddings. So yeah, I know that was a new one for us. But we're seeing a lot of people do, that. I mean, they really just want their photos like right away. They want people to see their wedding day right as it's happening. A lot of our couples, we don't mind when other people are photographing. And our couples love us for that, because they post on the day after their wedding, share all the photos you took, because we want to see how your day looks from or how our day looks from your perspective.
Yeah.
Which I get. You know, so that's a big thing, is like, we make sure that we actually turn around photos the night of their wedding to satisfy that instant gratification, because we know that's a real thing.
That is. So right now it sure is.
Yes.
Now, during the ceremony, is it the same? They want their couple or their guests to take pictures and stuff? Or
no, actually, and I feel kind of bad sometimes, because I feel like sometimes they do it because they think I want that.
Yeah.
I don't care if people are photographing as long as they're staying in their seats. It's the
Not in the aisle.
Yeah, it's the aisle blockers that kill me. But for the most part, we're seeing a lot of our couples ask their officiants to make sure that their guests are present.
And that's kind of been a hot button issue lately, you know, the unplugged wedding ceremony.
Yeah. And, you know, while we don't mind, we do completely understand the wanting of the being present, especially because the photos from the rear of the backside of the altar are huge right now.
Right.
Everybody wants us to take a shot of them kissing with all their guest reactions.
Oh, okay.
And that's hard to do when all of them are holding up cameras or phones to get that reaction or to get that kiss.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the concern that a lot of the guests have is that they're not getting all the photos. And they just need to be able to trust that their friends whose wedding they're attending hired someone who's going to provide the service that they want. And, you know, so there's two sides to every coin. But yeah, we're seeing a lot more of the requests for the unplugged wedding happening. Yeah. So, which isn't bad.
No, it's not.
I like seeing people's faces, especially mom and dad. Oh my goodness, they're amazing during weddings. It's, their reactions during the vows are incredible. So,
really? I bet.
So is there anything else our listeners should know?
I briefly mentioned it. So the one thing that I will say is that we don't need a shot list. Make sure that you are asking photographers to see an entire wedding.
Right.
And that you're also asking for references. Because that's huge. That'll tell you whether or not they have enough experience to actually need a shot list or not.
Right, there you go.
And two, the thing that we do need is a family grouping list. Because that can get really awkward if we don't know who your family is.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we are well aware of the strained relationships or of any divorces or of any other issues that are going on. I know that sounds like a really weird question for a photographer to ask, but it's hugely important for family photos.
Right.
And I don't mind going to rehearsal and being the bad guy that says, you have to be here at this time and be dressed.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier to kind of get that family photo session going smoother if we know who people are and if they're there on time.
Yeah.
So.
Have who to keep apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this mother over here, her father.
Yes,
divorced
exactly.
parents on either side of the
Yeah. And, you know, because we'll do variations of each grouping so that each parent feels important. But we can't do that unless we know who they are.
Right.
So, so that'd be the one last piece that I feel like couples should really know, especially on your photography, is we need to know who's important.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we keep an eye on them during the reception.
Oh, nice.
Because those are the people that the moments will mean the most for you. Mm-hmm. And so we're watching them at all times and taking a really journalistic approach at being able to anticipate when things are going to happen and when they're talking to important people, especially because you're probably going to miss that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so we really focus on all of your important people throughout your party.
That's great.
Yeah.
So tell all our listeners where they can find you.
All right, so we are pretty much on every social media. So all of our social media tags are G Squared Wedding with no S. So GSQUAREDWEDDING. But our website is gsquaredweddings.com. I know. Thanks, Twitter.
I know.
No room for the S. So yeah, we're available online on all those places: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, everything. So you can find us anywhere that you're looking.
All right.
Great. That makes it easy.
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much for coming. This has been very, very good, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of great information.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Kate gave us some great things to consider, I think.
Including all the timelines, like day of and when to do certain things for photography during your planning period as well.
That's right. And it just makes sense to include your photographer. I mean, they're going to be there with you the whole day.
Right.
So.
And like she said, Kate said that she helps coordinate like the schedule of events of that day. So maybe if you don't have a day of coordinator or something like that, your photographer could help you plan out your timeline. Like the DJ did when we interviewed the DJ. He said he helped with that as well. So
That's right.
your
DJ takes care of your reception, and your photographer can definitely help you figure out a good timeline for your ceremony and such. And, they're there with you all day long, and they're there for you to get all those special moments. And just including them, to me, it's just a big duh moment. Even though I hadn't thought about that,
Yeah. Coordinate with your photographer to help you plan that day, and it won't be a regret.
That's right, because we've been seeing lots of regret posts. What the bride regrets afterwards.
Right.
Don't let this be one of them. Show us some love by subscribing to From Ring to Veil on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And please leave us a review.
So until next time, no stress, no worries, keep calm, and listen on. Thank you for listening to our podcast. You can find us on Facebook, From Ring to Veil, on Twitter, @From Ring to Veil, and on our website, FromRingToVeil.com.